Coming up, I'm going to teach you how to manage your micromanager. And then, more data. We Americans are the worst at taking vacations. Why? What do we need to do about it? We'll get into it next. Welcome to the Ken Coleman Show, where I help you win at work. I want you to get better so that you can move up and lead well. And we're going to take on a topic today that has recently gone viral on socials. I did some teaching on micromanaging. What's behind it? It's one of the deadly leadership traits. This was on a previous show. You faithfuls out there will probably remember it. If you're new to the program and you haven't heard it, you can go search that up. But I talked about the 12 deadly leadership traits. And one of the traits we talked about on the show was micromanaging. And I unpacked what is behind a micromanager. And Callie, the social media maven, took a portion of that and put it on Instagram, and it's had 10.1 million views as of this morning. All that means is that we hit a nerve. Doesn't mean that I'm popular or that I'm cool. Believe me, my kids could care less. Nobody likes me any more or less. So we're talking about the viral nature of this is a deep, deep felt pain in the workplace. So as a result of that, I began to think about, okay, how can I help the millions of people? If I could get a message to all 10.1 million people who've watched that video and they are experiencing micromanagement, either above them or they themselves are doing it, what would I say? How would I attempt to add value? And so that's what we're going to get to. I'm going to give you 7 strategies. We're going to go through these quickly because these are very self-explanatory, but I'll give you a brief description. So here we go. We're going to get through them quickly, and we're going to move fast. And you're listening or you're watching, you can pause and take notes. Here we go. 7 strategies to manage your micromanager. In other words, how do I deal with them in a way that they don't drive me crazy or drive me out of the building? Here we go. Number 1, you got to understand why the micromanaging is happening. This I did the deep dive on the show previously, but a quick review. Your leader is simply afraid. They're afraid of something. They're afraid of a negative outcome, and as a result, they're trying to control everything that they could control to avoid the negative outcome. So you've got to understand specifically, what are they afraid of? And then, why are they trying to control the things they're trying to control? And many times they're trying to control you. Okay? So we got to get understanding for this. We've got to get understanding. If I get understanding, then I can begin to see where I could step in and try to alleviate their fear. That leads to the second strategy. Build their belief in you. Micromanagers, by the way, do not in any way single out just one person. It's going to be a problem across the board. So you may not be able to solve their micromanaging of others, but you can, in fact, I believe, at least attempt and have a sound strategy, which I'm giving you, to help them believe in you. So how do you build belief in you for them? Be on time. Be on mission. Deliver results that they are expecting of you. Deliver what they are expecting maybe ahead of schedule. And get to the point where they just go, you know what? I don't have to worry about this guy. I don't have to worry about this gal. I don't have to worry about him. So, great. They get to the point where they start worrying about other people. And see, a fear-based micromanager will find a way to manifest their fear. They'll find a way. So what they'll do is if they believe in you, they'll put their focused energy on everybody else. This is the genius. Number 3, communicate, communicate, communicate. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Over-communicate. Set up a weekly meeting if they don't already have one. Tell them what you're working on. Tell them what challenges you're facing. Make sure that you have the latest of their expectations. Micromanagers will shift their expectations all the time. All the time. So make sure that you have it. A clear expectation. You have it directly from them. Guidelines. Email them regular updates to eliminate their need to constantly be checking on you. Number 4, offer solutions. Be proactive to bring ideas, solutions is what we're talking about, that address the concerns that you figured out with strategy number 1 of understanding why the micromanagement is happening. Offer solutions. Get in front of their fear. See, all of you who have parented, or certainly all of you that have been in a relationship, understand this. You understand it. You go, I know my spouse's greatest fears. I know my kids' greatest fears. And so what we do is we anticipate them. We get in front of them. And so at that point, we now become not just self-aware to where we can provide solutions, but we're so aware of that leader or that spouse or that child. So that's what's going on. And it makes us really, really instinctively proactive. It's not something you have to walk around thinking, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Instinctively, you know. If you're a parent of a kid, you instinctively know the things they're most afraid of, and you do your best to protect them of that. It's just something it's like a instinct. It's just, that's what it is. Number 5, set boundaries. Now, I'll tell you this is the most difficult part of these strategies. This is the most difficult one because it takes a lot of courage. You've got to set boundaries. That's respectfully communicating how they're, now, by the way, you can't tell them it's micromanagement, but you've got to say to them, all right, we need to set some boundaries, and you can use whatever language you want to, but you've got to set boundaries. And you got to say, okay, I can't say yes to this because it will affect this. And so this is the boundary. And you over communicate. This goes hand in hand with communicate. Set a trial period for maybe a new process that you came up with strategy number 4, which is offering solutions. So again, this is you leading up. You're managing your micromanager. Number 6, document everything. Whew. This is, again, a major pain in the neck, but document everything. Document absolutely everything. Keep records of your work. Keep records of communication. Remember, again, in strategy 3, communicate in those weekly meetings and making sure that expectations are clear. Document all of it. Document all of it so that they switch gears on you midstream. Okay, last week you said this was the thing, so what is it? And again, this is a real way to help manage them, and they may step back and go, oh my goodness, you're right. I'm sorry. I got to. And all of this, by the way, I believe goes into building belief. They go, well, you know what? They've got their act together. They're not acting like a jerk. They're documenting everything. They're kind of helping me organize my thoughts. So it's a really effective way to, again, manage your micromanager. And number 7, stay positive. This is hard. This is hard. We as humans desire autonomy and we desire freedom. And when we don't have it, we begin to feel choked emotionally, choked mentally. And man, that just makes us want to do this and just break out of that, get out of that chokehold. You want to be free. And so there are times where that desire to be free and to break out of that chokehold can be negative for us professionally and financially, when in some ways we've got to endure the storm of micromanagement. And I believe these strategies will help you lead your manager and manage them out of this stuff. Because many times they're not bad people, they're bad leaders because they haven't been trained. And again, who among us operates at our best when we are afraid? So I have a lot of grace here for this. So stay positive. Control what you can control. Don't let them get you down. You model the way, the healthy work habits. By the way, the previous 6 strategies is a way for you to do this, to model the way. Be grateful for the work, the income. Focus on what you enjoy, and don't let the drama get to you. That's the key. So there you go. 7 strategies to manage your micromanager. If you do it, I promise you, it won't be near as bad as it has been, and you might be a part of the solution. Hey folks, I want to tell you about Aiden. He started at Bethel Tech 2 weeks after graduating high school, and less than a year later, he's 19 and working as a full-stack software developer. He loved the idea of being able to work at his own pace, but what he really thought was cool was Bethel Tech's faith-based learning environment and being with classmates who had a similar worldview. Now, if this is you, or if you have a son or a daughter that's looking for the next step out of high school and they may be tech-minded, at least interested, you need to talk to Bethel Tech. Listen to this. Fortune Magazine named them as a top 10 best UX UI bootcamp for 2024. And right now, they're offering you 10% off because you listen and watch the Ken Coleman Show. They also allow you to pay cash, and I know you'll like that. Go to betheltech.net/Ken Coleman for details. Terms and conditions apply. Welcome back to the Ken Coleman Show. Hey, for those of you who are feeling stuck, confused, just not happy where you are, this book, probably the most practical book I've ever written. Small, it's about a 45-minute read. It includes the Get Clear Career Assessment that will answer the questions, who am I? We're talking about a professional profile. What do I want to do? And where could that be? And then the book itself tells you how to get there, to ideate and to select. And so you can get that at kencoleman.com, kencoleman.com. And for those of you that are faithful to the show, new to the show, welcome aboard. Help us spread the word. If you're listening to via your favorite podcast app, give us a follow and a 5-star review. And if you're watching via YouTube, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe. And always feel free to share. Okay, let me take on an issue here that I find to be shockingly sad. Here's the headline. It's a USA Today article. We've talked about this some on the show, but we're doing a little deeper dive today. Article, headline, Americans are the worst globally at taking vacation time. Only half of Americans use all of their vacation days. Only half. 65% of U.S. workers said they feel as if they don't take enough time off. Yeah. Now, this is from Expedia's 24th Annual Vacation Deprivation Report. By the way, fun little nod to Expedia here. Brilliant marketing. Vacation Deprivation Report. I like saying that. I'm a word guy. I enjoy vacation deprivation. That's kind of interesting. I don't actually enjoy it. I enjoy saying it. But that's what's really going on here. And kudos to the marketing folks at Expedia for taking a stab at this. Now, let's see where we stack up with the rest of the world. Americans are almost twice as likely to go a year or more without taking a vacation compared to the rest of the world. The study found that Japan, France, and Hong Kong were 3 standout countries and we're given the score of having healthy holiday habits. It's fantastic to see some of the Eastern cultures, like Japan and Hong Kong, do so well in this area, because you do not see this in China, and it's very interesting. Now, Mel Fish, who's the VP of Global Public Relations for Expedia, said this as a result of reviewing the data. Vacations are not a guilty pleasure, but that's the way Americans have been treating time off for years now. A guilty pleasure. Now, full disclosure here. I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of these Americans. 65% of respondents say they don't feel they take enough time off. I'm trying to put myself in their shoes, but I can't, because I've never been that way. I've never one time looked at vacation as a guilty pleasure. fundamentally speaking, when you go to work for a company and they say you have this many vacation days, there's nothing to be guilty about. They give them to you. It's like waking up on Christmas morning and being riddled with guilt when you get presents. Why? Why would you be guilty? Why would you be riddled with guilt? I guess if you're a turd to everybody in your family and they still got you gifts, sure, okay, all right, that's fine. I'll give you that. But we're assuming here that we're not turds at work. And so if I'm not a turd at work, then I'm not guilty about taking vacation. I'm going to go, hey, guys, it's my time. Taking the fam, going to make some memories. I'm going to relax. I'm going to do things that normal, healthy people do. But if you're a turd to everybody, then I guess you could get to a point where you go, oh, man, I should probably not be so excited about my vacation because I make everybody else's life a living hell when I'm around them. Okay, I get that. But let's be honest. The absurdity of this point is that turds are unaware that they stink and that they're gross. They just are unaware. So we'll get more into this in just a second. There are some specific factors here that are making people feel a sense of guilt, but there's a few more factors. We'll get to that in a minute. All right, more shocking data. The study found that Americans take 11 days off a year on average. 11 days. On average. So, let's get to the reasons. Guilt, I'll break that down more in a moment. Hustle culture, more on that. And the stress of planning a trip are why 65% of Americans say they're vacation deprived. And here's one on the whole idea of the stress of planning a trip. Again, this one threw me off. About 19% of Americans say they save up their vacation days for a big trip and end up not even going. The stress of planning a trip. So let me tell you what I think this is, coming from Ramsey Solutions, co-host of the largest financial show in the world. I think what's hidden underneath this, and I don't know if the pollsters didn't dig or they just decided, the person who wrote this article, they didn't include it. But let me tell you what's underneath this. One of the top 3 reasons that 65% of Americans don't go on vacation or use their vacation days is the stress of planning a trip. Okay. Let me tell you what it really is. The stress of paying for the trip. Credit card debt's at an all-time high. And I think when you look at this data, 19% of Americans say they save up their vacation days for a big trip and end up not going. You know why? They save up their vacation date. They get on Instagram. They start looking at what everybody else is doing. They start talking to their kids about what all their friends, families are doing. And they start to get into this keep up with the Joneses thing. It's just comparison. It's a cancer. And so what happens is they start planning. And then they realize we can't afford this. The vacation is way bigger than our bank account can handle. And so the stress of how am I going to pay for it? I can't pay for it. Watch this. This is next. I'm a loser. I can't take my family on the vacation that all my kids' friends are going or my family members. And it starts to be a downward emotional spiral. That, to me, is the dirty secret in this whole deal of people who are in the bucket of the stress of planning a trip keeps you from going on vacation, or you're saving up your days for a big trip and you end up not going. So I'm not in any way pointing fingers, but folks, you need to go on vacation, whether or not you can go to Disney or the Disney cruise for 7 to 10 days, and spend basically the down payment on a house for that cruise. If you can't afford it, guess what? Go to some remote beach somewhere. Go be something. Do something creative and fun. Get away from the office. Use the vacation time. The very root word of vacation is vacate. To vacate the work environment, to vacate the rhythms of work, to vacate the stress of work, remove yourself so that you recreate yourself. Again, recreation, to recreate yourself. I think it's tragic. It's tragic. Now, here's the downside of this. When you aren't vacating, you begin to feel as though that you're not living the life you want to live. No time away. Listen, that time of rejuvenation is important for us mentally, physically, and emotionally, just to make the memories. You know, Stacey and I, we many times will talk about some of the kids' vacations, and pictures, family pictures will pop up, you know, as they do on our phones or iPads, and you see the scenes of a great family vacation, and it just restores so many great memories. The hustle culture. Listen, if you're doing a good job and you're not a turd, then you're not going to be replaced when you leave for 2 weeks. You're just not. Guilt. What are we guilty of? I've covered that. Guilt, hustle culture, and the stress. The stress is financial. So plan for it. Plan for it. Get out of debt. Get an emergency fund. Put yourself in a position where your life isn't so stressed out that you feel like you got to overplan, overpay for something just to notch a victory. That's the other thing. If your life is peaceful and healthy, then you don't have to have the 10-day Disney cruise. You can do something a lot more reasonable for your budget. So, folks, I bring this up because this is slowly killing us emotionally, and then that can slowly kill us physically. You've got to take your time off. This is a professional pandemic. This is a professional pandemic. When you see 65% of U.S. workers are saying they're not taking enough time off, they're not using their vacation. It's a professional pandemic, and we, the people, can change it. There's nothing to be guilty of. Take your time off and make the most of it. You need it. Your family needs it. Quite frankly, your team and your leaders need it. Go away. Come back. Give everybody a high five. Keep going. And don't be a turd. Welcome back to the Ken Coleman Show. Time to get a coaching session in here. Let's go to Dan, who's joining us in Washington, D.C. Dan, how can I help today?
Hey, Ken, thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
Real quick, I wanted to give you some background. So my boss is a micromanager. During my last couple of performance reviews this year, she's told me that she believes I've capped out of what she can offer me and that she supports me if I need to leave or take a special assignment to help further my career. I recently, a few weeks ago, applied to a permanent position that won't start until October. I haven't had the interview yet. She somehow found out and has since reprimanded me and kind of put me in the doghouse for not telling her that I was applying. So I was surprised by that, given the conversation that we had during my subsequent reviews. She's in those meetings. She's accused me of lying by omission, that she can't trust me anymore, and that I've gone behind her back, and that she that it leaves a sour taste for my departure. Even when I explained to her my position, she accuses me of knowing exactly what I was doing, and that she told me, even though that she's told me before, that she supports me in my career development. So my questions are, one, what is the protocol for notifying your boss that you are applying for a job? And in my case, should I have told my boss that I was applying?
Well, let me answer the first question. There's no official protocol in the professional heavens or the archives of professional, behavior. If you're applying for something externally, I've advised people, and I'm never going to change this advice. If you're applying for something externally, I wouldn't tell your boss. It's stupid. That's just dumb. You don't know if you're going to get it. You're not cheating on them. This isn't a professional affair. You have the right to go work where you want to work. So if you go apply for a job somewhere else, you don't tell your boss until it's time to resign.
Right.
All right.
Right.
That's straightforward. Now, applying for an internal job is different.
Okay.
And first of all, quick context of my comments. She's unhealthy.
Right.
Okay. So having a healthy conversation with a person who's unhealthy, it's the right thing to attempt, but it's also the equivalent of banging your head against the wall and going, I hope this doesn't hurt.
Right.
In this situation, what I would have done is in the initial conversation where she says to you, I can't offer you any more promotions. I'm inferring that's what you meant when she says she doesn't have anything else for you. Okay. So in that initial meeting, I would have said, okay, thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that. I would like to move up in my career, and I want to keep growing. And so can I, obviously, I'm assuming I have your blessing to look for some things internally. How would you, how can I best go about communicating what I'm looking for? I would have done it in the moment. So I do think I think she's over dramatic. I think she's been overly dramatic in the way she's responded to this. But because she's not using her own common sense. And by the way, micromanagers don't use common sense. They use emotion.
Right.
And so she ought to have enough sense, and she does, if she can turn her emotions off for a half second. She ought to have enough sense to go, I just told Dan that there's no more steps on the ladder under me. And I told him, and she did. I thought you told me she did say, you should start looking for something else, right?
She did, right, in both meetings, back in January and back in March.
Did you document that?
It is documented in my reviews, yes, in my notes that was said. Okay,
great. So I would show that to her, or anybody in the process. Go, this is strange. She basically pushed me out, gave me a nudge, and then when I followed the inertia of the nudge, she's gotten offended. So I would have that documented, and I'd have that conversation, because you don't know what she's going to say or do behind your back within the building.
Right.
But I would attempt to go back to her. I mean, when was this last conversation when she dropped all this drama on you about I can't trust you?
It was last week and then the week before that. So it's been a couple weeks. And then
did you bring up this stuff? Like, hey, the stuff you and I are talking about?
I did. I mentioned it, and
what was her response?
It was the lying by omission. It was all of that I should have said that I was applying, and
I don't disagree. I don't think it's lying by omission. I think you're like, look, she told me to move on, so I'm looking. But in her case, a micromanager, this is the whole thing right here. I'm gonna go back to my opening. I don't know if you heard my opening segment. Communicate.
Right.
They are unhealthy. A micromanager is unhealthy, thus they are unreasonable.
Right. I would put this on a paranoid. I have other examples, but it's basically paranoia type personality tendencies.
Totally agree with you. So, first of all, you and I are in. I appreciate the call, but you and we're borderline crying over spilt milk at this point. There's nothing you can do to fix it other than to go back to her and maybe say, you know what? Here's what I did. We've already discussed it. I know you call it lying by omission. I want to be mature and go, I understand that you still, even though you told me to kind of look, I still should have communicated better.
Right.
That to me is trying to finish well with her and to try to restore something. It might, because you're looking for something in the building. And let me just tell you something. What I'm about to tell you would not be easy for me to do.
Yeah.
But I will tell you that I would do it. And I think people who know me well would go, Ken would absolutely do this. So here's what I would do. I'd go in and I'd totally eat crow, the old phrase. I would just go, hey, I've had some time to think about this, and I've tried to put myself in your shoes. I was a little confused, and I've explained all this already. I'm not here to make excuses. I should have said, I'm officially looking at this over here, and I'll keep you posted on what's going on. I should have made you aware of it. You're absolutely right. I could have handled it better.
Right.
But I want to do well. I want to finish well with you. Just fall on the sword.
Right.
There's absolutely nothing to lose because it's going to go one of two very clear ways, in my opinion.
Yeah.
She's going to be either indignant about it and still have her fanny in the air and act all bothered by it and, whatever. Or she's going to go, all right. Finally, someone acknowledges that I'm right and I was mistreated and thank you very much. And she actually takes your apology.
Right.
Neither one of her responses are healthy, but the second one is the best you can hope for.
Yeah, it's the above reproach type of.
Yeah, why not? You've got nothing to lose. You only have something to gain.
Right. Yeah, and I've done that partially. I think the big piece, like you had said, I think circling back with her again and really saying like this was what I really understood because she was heated when I had brought it up, and so I do need to circle that back and just it's been a little bit of time and just clarify and say, hey, yeah, this is what
just say, hey, I did not. That's right. I didn't intend it. I did not intend to disrespect you or catch you off guard.
Right.
I was forward thinking. I assumed some things that I should not have assumed.
Right. Exactly.
And just own it.
Yeah. Right. I know, and that's the difficult part. I mean, this is, and where I work in the C-suite. So these are all executives that I work with, and so it's. Take
the high road.
High tense. Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Take the high road. Fall on the sword. Be super humble. Don't even make anything. Just go. You know what? I've been chewing on this. That is not what I intended to do.
Right.
But I understand how you see it that way, and that perception is reality, and I am responsible for that. So I apologize, and I'm going to over communicate. You were 100% right. I should have handled it better.
Right.
My intent was not wrong. But the way I went about it was.
Right.
Just own it. That's all you can do.
Yep.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. No,
all right.
That's good.
Yeah, appreciate the call. Yeah,
you.
Absolutely. Good stuff there. Good stuff. Folks, when you're dealing with somebody who's unhealthy, you got to take the high road and be okay with how you handled it. This is The Ken Coleman Show.
Thanks for listening to The Ken Coleman Show. For more, you can find the show on demand wherever you listen to podcasts and watch the show on YouTube. You can also find Ken across all social media by following @Ken Coleman.